Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that long. Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone.
When I was a teenager on our farm in Illinois, I foolishly wasted many hours watching violent TV programs, Gunsmoke, Wyatt Earp, Have Gun Will Travel, Wagon Train, The Lone Ranger, Zorro. This was years before I knew I was gay, many years before I first had sex with a man at 31. If I had known I was gay as a teenager, maybe instead of wasting many precious hours polluting and poisoning my mind with evil, violent TV programs, I would have enjoyed giving and receiving affectionate pleasure with other males. Passionate sex and romance can crowd out addiction to glamorize guns, cruelty, and horror. And many years ago in our Illinois farmhouse where I grew up, we had 2 or 3 rooms we could not use because of piles of stuff. I'm so glad that before my mother died, she and I got rid of much stuff. We gave away, we threw away. Millions of people in this country spend many thousands of dollars renting storage lockers or buying sheds for their backyards to store mountains of stuff they do not need and they refuse to get rid of. How sad. Those millions of dollars spent to store that stuff could feed many hungry children worldwide. And one of the reasons I enjoy my 1-room home now, 9.5 by 12 feet, in my friend's house, where I've lived 14 years, is I do not have space. I do not have space to hoard much stuff I do not need. We can set ourselves free from hoarding addiction. Holding on to mountains of stuff is a heavy burden. Do I want to curse my friends in charge when I die with getting rid of mountains of stuff? Hell no. Jesus said, "Your heavenly Father feeds the birds. Are you not of more value than the birds?" But the awful truth is that for thousands of years, God did not feed them. Millions have starved to death for thousands of years. Jesus said, "Not one sparrow will fall to the ground without your Father's will. You are of more value than many sparrows." But I say, are the many disasters and atrocities suffered by millions according to God the Father's will? Jesus told us to forgive 70 times 7, to always forgive. Jesus told us to be more forgiving than God, who sends people to hell. What loving human parent would send their son or daughter to never-ending torture with no pardon, no parole in hell? The Bible says the powers that be are ordained of God Were Hitler and the Nazis ordained of God? Is the U.S. government that has murdered millions in Native America, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Central America, and Gaza ordained of God? When two nations are murdering each other in war, are both governments ordained of God? Insanity. The Bible has some precious wisdom and much evil poison. If you read the Bible, read with extreme caution to separate its wisdom from its poison. I was a sincere young Christian preacher 57 years ago, but I no longer believe in a fair, loving parent God. How bad will the climate crisis get before most U.S. travelers are ashamed of driving cars thousands of miles, flying in planes thousands of miles for business or just for pleasure? How long until U.S. long-distance travelers stop bragging and boasting about how many states, how many countries they've traveled to? Many of these long-distance travelers would be ashamed of having their homes and yards filthy and full of crap. But are they proud of poisoning our only home, Mother Earth, with many thousands of miles driven and flown? I have not traveled outside New Mexico since I returned from my dad's funeral in Illinois 30 years ago. The black activist Malcolm X said, "The worst crime whites have committed toward blacks is teaching us to hate ourselves for being black." I say one of the worst crimes many, but not all, preachers, priests, rabbis, imams, parents, teachers, have committed toward us who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, is teaching us to reject and hate ourselves for whom we are sexually attracted to and in love with. I dedicate today's program to dear Jose, a bisexual, very attractive man from Mexico. I met him summer 1991 at the Spence Hot Springs in Jemez. Jose was 23. I had sex with Jose 76 times. I kept track. Many years ago. More times than with any other man in my life. When Jose was a kid, sadly, his father beat him. And this is my poem for Jose, entitled A Healing Pleasure. For the man whose dad beat his ass when he was a boy, to have his ass kissed, licked, fucked by me, a man who deeply loves him, is, I hope, a healing baptism of intense pleasure to the abused spot of pain and humiliation inflicted by an angry man many years before. Slow, man-given healing for a cruel, ugly, man-made scar. Sadly, Jose was deported to Mexico years ago. I don't know if he's living or dead. No kid on earth needs a $50 toy. Every kid needs parents who will answer their questions truthfully. No bullshit. Every kid needs parents who will never say, "Why are you asking that question? Go watch TV or go out and play." If the parents are very busy at the moment the kid asks, tell the kid, "I will answer your question this evening." No 18-year-old or adult needs a new car. Teenagers need parents who welcome personal questions about their lives, their mistakes, their lessons, the parents' fears and deepest feelings. Teenagers need parents. The teenagers can tell anything from their lives, no matter how much the parents do not approve. Teenagers need parents that they can ask any question about family secrets, that they can talk freely about sex and death. All the expensive gifts to your children are never a substitute for being totally open, totally honest with your children, and having your children know they can be totally open, totally honest with you, so they need never fear you will stop loving them. Exercise alone is not enough to be healthy. We need to eat only healthy food. Raw plant foods are best. Jim Fixx, F-I-X-X, wrote one of the most popular books on exercise, entitled The Complete Book of Running. It was on bestseller lists for almost 2 years in the late 70s. And until his mid-30s, Jim Fixx smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, weighed 220 pounds. At 35, he stopped smoking. Soon he was running 80 miles a week, including marathons. Jim Fixx lost all his fat, but sadly, he did not change much what he ate. In his book, Jim Fixx quoted a doctor who said, "Any non-smoker fit enough to run a marathon in less than 4 hours will never suffer a fatal heart attack." That's what a doctor had told Jim Fixx, and he put it in his book on running. Jim Fixx's father had died at 43 from a heart attack. But Jim Fixx believed that running every day, not smoking, would protect him. Sadly, Jim Fixx, the nation's leading advocate on the health benefits of running, died of a massive heart attack while running. He was only 52. 3 of his heart arteries were more than 70% blocked. 1 was 99% blocked. Exercise is wonderful. Exercise is necessary to be healthy. But exercise can never make up for eating unhealthy crap. We need exercise and only healthy food. Raw plant foods, preferably organic, are best. No meat, no dairy, no processed shit, no sugar shit. If you're just coming out as gay or bisexual or trans or non-binary, do you know any straight friend you are quite sure will accept your being gay or bisexual or trans or non-binary? Tell that straight person. If you're living with your parents and you know they would reject you if you told them the truth about yourself, you may need to wait until you move out to tell them. Search for gay, bi, and trans, non-binary friends who will accept you for who you are. Search for straight friends who already have out gay, bi, trans, or non-binary friends. When our birth family rejects us for who we are, we need to form a new family while still keeping our hearts open if someday some of our birth family open their hearts to us. It can happen. Sometimes it does happen, but it can take years. When I told my friend Patty Quintana here in Albuquerque in the late 70s that I am gay, Patty told me she knew from the first day I met her in 1970, years before I told her. When I told my friend Lupe Olalde in the late 70s, I am gay, he told me he knew from the first day I met him in 1969. I never had sex with any man until late 1976. Often friends know someone is gay or bi or trans or non-binary years before that person knows or fully accepts who he or she or they are. I condemn kids shooting kids or adults, but adults are largely the cause. Kids do not own the gun factories. Kids do not own the gun stores. Kids do not write, produce, and act in the evil U.S. movies that glamorize guns, that glamorize settling problems with a gun. Kids are not the mayors, the business owners, the city officials, the state officials who say nothing publicly against the evil movies made in New Mexico. Movies glamorizing guns and murder. Kids are not the adult actors of all colors who get filthy rich, poisoning kids' minds with violence. Kids are not the parents who own guns and who love guns. Yes, kids who shoot and kill need to change, of course, but even more so, the adults who are even more responsible for kids' gun violence. A U.S. Vietnam veteran named Doug said, "I hope you can see the hell I live through every day. My experience has left me a very lonely person. I have no real friends, and I don't think I ever will until I find peace within myself. I hope that someday, I will be able to forgive myself. You ever hear a veteran like that who's been in combat interviewed on TV or radio? Far worse than COVID is war fever. A father has war fever when he believes the military will make his son a better person by enslaving him in this nation's most violent gang. A fan in the sports stadium has war fever when he or she gets excited and feels patriotic pride when a U.S. jet bomber flies over the stadium to open the football season. Millions of men and women have war fever when they enjoy watching war movies, when they own and love guns, when they play violent video games. Millions of men and women have war fever when they choose to be ignorant and silent about U.S. wars worldwide, including in Gaza. My dear friends Bob and Alberta lived in the town of Freeport, Illinois, 6 miles from the farm where I grew up. And when I became close friends with them, they were an older white couple. They had a business in their home. Many people, including my parents, went to them to renew state licenses for cars and trucks. Most people never knew the sex lives of this ordinary-looking, older, white couple. Bob told me if the people of that town knew how he felt on sex and on politics, he would have been run out of town. Bob supported justice and equality for black people. Bob supported justice and equality for women and for poor people. Bob was against U.S. wars. Bob and Alberta were open and honest with each other about their sex with other people. Little or no jealousy. They had 2 bisexual male friends. Alberta got turned on watching these 2 bisexual men have sex. And seeing her turned on turned Bob on. And Bob copied some gay sex tapes for me many years ago. He invited me to come watch his straight sex videos with him. He said I could watch the handsome men and he could watch the beautiful women. Bob had sex with other women, including a Catholic nun in that town. Alberta had sex with other men. I still have a cassette tape that Bob gave me maybe over 25 years ago. A conversation he and Alberta had in bed as they had sex. Bob was asking her about the sex she had with a hot young man who lived in their home. Sex earlier. Hearing how turned on Alberta was in sex with that hot young man turned Bob on. And he kept asking her questions on this cassette tape that he sent me to get her to tell more how turned on she was with that hot young man. And one special man Alberta had sex with, she made a popsicle from some of his cum. And she kept the popsicle in the freezer and would take it out sometimes and suck on it as she thought of that man. The men and women Bob and Alberta had sex with were their friends, not strangers. I wish I could remember all Bob told me about their sex lives. He died at 94 in 2005. Alberta died over 14 years before Bob. They were married 48 years when she died. Alberta was Bob's number one woman, not the only woman, but his number one woman. And after her death from cancer, he found no woman as special as Alberta. They both were very kind to me, and they lived not in Paris, not in New York, but Freeport, a town of 20-some thousand people. And most people who knew them had no idea what went on sexually behind closed doors in their lives, Bob and Alberta, in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. They were far more sexually liberated than many uptight, jealous young couples today. They were far more sexually liberated than many married men and women who have sex with other people but lie, and sadly deny the truth to each other. African-American Daryl Davis he met and had good conversation with many men who were white supremacists. More than a dozen members of the KKK he helped come out from their racist ideology. And Daryl Davis, African American, said, when you sit down with somebody and you, one-on-one, you begin to find things that you have in common. And the more you build on that, the more you break down barriers. And Davis first encountered racism when he was one of two African American students in his elementary school in Massachusetts. They pointed at me and they said, we're going to send you back to Africa. If you don't go, you'll be exterminated. These white kids told African American Daryl Davis in school. Davis said the experience didn't inspire him to hate, but made him want to understand racism. And from that day forth, he says, I made it a point to learn everything I could about supremacy. Davis, a professional piano player, said he first met a member of the Ku Klux Klan in the early 70s. Early 80s, correction, while he was playing with his band at a truck stop in Maryland. Davis said he was approached by a man who complimented him on his piano playing. He said he learned the man was a white supremacist after a lengthy conversation. The Klansman looked at Daryl just as plain as day, and he said, "I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan." The Klansman gave Davis the contact information for Roger Kelly, then the most powerful member of the KKK in Maryland. Davis said he set up his first private meeting with Kelly by having his white secretary call and schedule an appointment. Davis said he and Kelly were on edge during their conversation, but they agreed to meet again. He said he was head of the Ku Klux Klan and I was a black guy, but we were sitting at the same table talking. We were agreeing and disagreeing, but everything we did, we were civilized about it. Davis said he continued to speak with Kelly. They developed a respectful relationship. Davis said Kelly eventually gave up white supremacy and the KKK. A couple years back, Roger Kelly quit the KKK, Davis said, and when he left the Klan, he gave me his robe and hood. Now he'll come out with me on lectures sometimes to talk. Davis said Kelly wasn't the only KKK member to give up the robe and hood. I've gotten many robes, many hoods from Klan's people from all over the country, just because I sat down and talked to people. He encouraged students to pursue dialogue as a way to respond to racism and hatred. Anybody can do this, Davis said. All you have to do is take the time to sit down and talk to people without making any assumptions about them. Then listen and share your thoughts with them. My father's parents, my grandparents, Lloyd and Anna Schrader, worked hard as farmers for many years. They suffered sicknesses and the Great Depression. Even after retiring, my grandparents, my father's parents, had a big garden and they ran a small restaurant Tuesdays at my parents' cattle auction market. My grandma greatly enjoyed cooking and seeing many people, including me back then, eat her delicious food. Some folks came for miles to eat at that small restaurant. And back then, I was still addicted to sugar, to meat, to cooked food. It tasted good, but I eventually woke up that those are not healthy. My grandma had never learned what I have learned about health these past 50 years, from hundreds of articles, conversations, books, speakers, videos, my own experiences. And my grandpa washed the dishes at the restaurant. The last years of his life, he and I kissed each other on our lips. As far as I know, I was the only adult male he kissed on the lips. My grandma also was affectionate to me. I wish now and learn from my mistake, all my mistakes, I wish now I had spent more time with them. They both were good to me. Tragically, a severely abused 18-year-old white man named Dale murdered my grandpa and grandma as they slept in bed June 25th, 1976. I was 30 years old. Grandpa was 85. Grandma was 82. And years later, Dale was arrested and confessed. He sincerely repented for murdering my grandparents. He appreciated my forgiveness, my becoming his friend. The first time I met Dale, when I visited him in prison, tears came to his eyes. I have 60 letters at home that he wrote me before Dale killed himself in prison. He suffered severe depression because of flashbacks of his crime. Memory is the worst punishment for anyone with a conscience. If someone kills me and later truly repents, I ask my friends to offer forgiveness and friendship to the person. I wish all U.S. presidents and other world leaders who have murdered many grandparents in war would repent as Dale did for killing my grandparents. And after Dale died, his mother, whom I had never met, wrote me, thanking me for becoming Dale's friend. A woman wrote, "These people who write in with sympathy for the poor teenagers of divorced or separated parents make me ill," she says. "I wish I had divorced my husband long before my children were teenagers. They would probably be much better adjusted to life than they are now. She says, I asked my 14-year-old son if he wanted his father to move back in. His dad was hanging around the house at mealtimes. My son was a quiet boy, a deep thinker. He said, 'Mom, I like Dad better when he does not live here.' My son is now 34. On a recent visit, I asked him if he ever remembered seeing his father put his arms around me or kiss me. He said once when he was leaving town. This man mentally abused me, abused the children. I could go on for hours. I can truthfully say that I've been happier the last 18 years since my divorce than I have ever been. I've adjusted pretty well, but my son needs counseling to get on with his life." And this woman says, the bottom line is this: there are worse things than a broken home. Another woman writes, "My father-in-law used to say, 'I know that smoking is not good for me, but I'd rather enjoy my time on earth and die a little earlier than deprive myself of the things I enjoy.'" She says, unfortunately, Dad did not get very much more enjoyment because he had to have bypass surgery. And then he needed his arteries stripped so his brain could get proper blood supply. And then they stripped his femoral arteries. Not once, but twice, he continued smoking one cigarette after another. And soon his leg got gangrene. There was not enough artery to save. So they amputated his leg almost to his hip. And Dad's other leg began to lose circulation. His coronary bypasses were clogging. Just because you have bypass surgery does not mean you're going to stay okay. Oh no, they can clog up again if you don't eat healthy and exercise. Fortunately, he died before they did any further amputations. And through all of this, she says, Dad never deprived himself of the pleasure of smoking, but he deprived his family of having him around to celebrate his 60th birthday. This powerful study involved 3 groups of rats. The first group of rats were fed from birth diets of raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw fruits, raw whole grains. They grew into completely healthy specimens, never suffered from any diseases. They grew rapidly, never became fat. They reproduced with vigor and enthusiasm. They had healthy offspring. They were always playful and affectionate. Upon reaching an age equivalent to 80 human years, they were put to death, autopsy. And all their organs, glands, tissues appeared in perfect condition with no signs of aging or degeneration. The second group of rats were fed from birth cooked foods, including white bread, meat, milk, salt, soda, candy, cakes, vitamins, medicines. And these rats became fat and were afflicted by the very same diseases that afflict present-day society: colds, fevers, pneumonia, poor eyesight, cataracts, heart disease, arthritis, cancer. And during the life cycle of this group, the rats were vicious, nervous, self-destructive. They had to be separated to keep them from killing each other. Their offspring were consistently ill, displayed the same behaviors as their parents. And most of the second group died prematurely from diseases or various epidemics which swept through the colony. Autopsies performed on this group revealed extensive degeneration in all their organs, glands, tissues of their bodies. The third group of rats were fed a diet identical to the second group until they reached an equivalent human age of 40 years. They were fed cooked foods, white bread, meat, milk, salt, soda, candy, cakes, vitamins, medicines. At the end, and they displayed the same symptoms of ill health as that second group did: colds, fevers, poor eyesight, cataracts, heart disease, cancer, arthritis. And the same self-destructive behaviors: vicious, nervous, self-destructive, as that second group. But at the end of this time period, equivalent to 40 human years, these rats were placed on a strict water fast for several days, and then they were fed the raw diet of the first group: raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw nuts, raw whole grains. And this was alternated with periods of fasting no food to cleanse the crap, poisons out of their bodies from what they had eaten. And within 1 month, their health, their behavior changed big time. They became affectionate, playful, never became ill. And autopsies performed after the equivalent of 80 human years on this third group showed they had reversed the degenerative tissue damage. We can rejuvenate our bodies and health by changing to eat only raw, living plant foods. Cooked food is slow poison. It's not going to kill you immediately, of course not. But cooked food is dead, and we need living, raw plant foods for the best health. I stopped cooking my food December 12th, 1998. I'm now 78. The U.S. did 66 atomic and hydrogen bomb tests that took place on the Bikini Atoll in the Marshall Islands during the 1940s and 50s. The U.S. government intentionally, deliberately, left the inhabitants of a neighboring island behind. Why? In order to gauge the effects of radioactive fallout on humans. Talk about the Nazis experimenting on human beings, causing awful suffering. One elderly woman told of giving birth to lifeless blobs of flesh when she was younger, and stillborn infants. The end result of genetic mutations brought on by massive exposure to radioactive fallout. Children born with horrible birth defects, leaving them with no muscle coordination, particularly heart-wrenching to watch. Old newsreels repeatedly refer to the islanders as amiable savages. A taped message showing a smiling President Reagan bidding the newly independent Marshall Islanders good luck reveals U.S. evil and cruelty occurred well into the 1980s. Horrible evil. Talk about the Nazi Holocaust, crimes against humanity committed by many countries. The United States, as Martin Luther King said, is the greatest purveyor of violence. Many males who yell faggot at others have sex with men, or they want to, but do not have the balls to say so. Some men make fun of, curse, threaten, beat up, even murder gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and trans persons. Many men live a double life. A gay white guy told me a married Chicano picked a fight with him. And later, the two of them, the gay white guy, the married Chicano, were at the same party. And as the night wore on, the gay white guy and the married Chicano got it on. Not with fists, but in sex. And the married Chicano went home to his wife and came back to the gay white guy for more sex. The gay white guy asked the married Chicano, if you had these feelings for me, why did you pick a fight with me? And the married Chicano answered honestly, I could not let my friends know. Many or most men who love sex are bi-curious about sex with men, even if they have never done it or never will with a man. And until any man on earth can freely tell his family, his friends, he enjoys sex with men with no shame, no fear, no guilt, and until any woman on earth can freely tell her family, her friends, she enjoys sex with women with no fear, no shame, no guilt, our struggle for romantic freedom must continue. If you have friends who insult or attack gays, lesbians, bisexuals, trans persons, tell them, you better stop persecuting those people, because some people may wonder, why are you barking so loud? What are you running from inside? What are you trying to hide? Many diamonds sold in the United States are heartbreaking stories of greed, violence, and mutilation. African children are forced into slavery to mine diamonds. And if these African children fail to work or produce, they are beaten, punished, even their arms cut off. Many diamonds sold in this nation are these blood diamonds, agents of terror. And there's no easy way to know for sure if the diamond you buy is a blood diamond. If you have a conscience, never buy diamond jewelry, even if it's not a blood diamond. Why waste money on something no one needs? While others in this world suffer hunger, cold, sickness, with no home, I will never buy diamond jewelry the rest of my life. Boycott the whole diamond industry. The poem War by Peace Pilgrim. On the scarred battlefield where they forced me to go, I met a man that they said was my enemy, and I ran him through with my blade. And when I pulled it out and his blood gushed forth, I was suddenly filled with racking remorse. I killed a man, I said. He was slim and youthful and frightened like me. Not a devil, as they said he would be. They sent me to kill you, he sighed. By God, I wish you had done so, I swore. Why, I don't even know what I'm fighting for. Nor I, he breathed and died. Now, no matter how much I disagree with someone's habits or beliefs, I want to look for what we have in common between us. I want to look for what I can learn from that person on maybe how not to live. I want to look for what I can sincerely compliment in that person. The black South African Bishop Desmond Tutu was a hero of conscience and bravery. For many years, he strongly protested publicly the brutal evil of white supremacy in South Africa that tortured, jailed, and murdered many black South Africans. After democracy came in 1994, Desmond Tutu worked to bring healing and reconciliation between former enemies, whites and blacks. He insisted on the nation telling and hearing the truth about the massive, bloody, racist horrors whites had committed against blacks. Desmond Tutu fought for equality for all people, men and women, all skin colors, beliefs, and backgrounds. As a gay man, I thank him. I strongly compliment him for supporting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. As a humble man, he wanted no expensive, fancy casket. His plain, simple, small pine casket had rope handles. What an inspiring example for all of us. Desmond Tutu died at age 90 in 2021. I thank very much Mark, Eddie, Travis for their excellent help in running the cameras and controls many dozens of times for my program. And I thank you for watching and listening. I welcome you to talk with me if you see me. I love personal questions. I love heart-to-heart conversations. I drink my fresh piss every day for health. Warm hugs to all of you who want my hugs.
Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on. And when it's said and done, you'll know